You're a good man. We are talking about Proverbs. Pastor Mandy opened our series on Proverbs up last week, and I hope that you caught that message. If you didn't, if you're on Kenya, it will be up on the YouTube as soon as physically possible. But I am following that up with a very interesting theme, a really practical theme. So the thing about Proverbs that we're trying to look at is some of the really practical things, and maybe the themes that are underlying in Proverbs, but just really, really practical things. And my one today is friendship. The most practical of all relationships, actually, now that I've been reading about it, thinking about it. The topic of friendship. And what does the wisdom of Psalms have to share with us about the topic of friendship? So I'm just going to get straight into it and tell you, define. What is a friend? What is a friend? What is a friend according to the wisdom of Proverbs? So the word that Proverbs uses for a friend literally just means to love. It comes from a root word in the Hebrew that means to desire, and that you would breathe after something in a way that you long for it. And I know most of you are going, ooh, like that's a bit romantic, isn't it? Like that's a different kind of love. But isn't it interesting that in the Bible, the idea of friend is like that same attachment, that same love that you could use. The root word for friend is the same root word that you love your husband or wife, like you love your family, you love God. Like all of these loves, these great loves in your life come from the same root word, and one of the great loves in your life should be friends. Yeah. According to the Bible, according to the way Proverbs constructs this idea. It's a love that your heart sort of leans towards this person. That's a friend. I don't know if you can think for a moment of someone in your life, or maybe some people in your life, that just your heart leans towards that person in a way that maybe you change priorities because you love that person, because your heart goes to that person, because your heart is attached to that person. That's a friend. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. That's how the Bible defines a friend. It's different to a companion. It has to do with desire, not like a romantic desire, but desire to be around this person. And it also is important to us, because psychologists tell us that your friends define your identity because they reinforce your values. We're going to come to this a little bit later, but this is actually a really important idea, that your friends will become your friends because they share your value system. And because they share your value system, they help define your identity. They actually help you find a place to belong in the world. Belonging is one of our essential needs as human beings, and your friends will help you find a place to belong in this world. Friends are very important. C.S. Lewis has a crazy book called The Four Loves. I want to read you a couple of quotes from his book when he's talking about friendship. Listen up to this. Friendship has no survival value. Rather, it is one of those things which give value to survival. Lovers are always talking to one another about their love. Friends hardly ever talk about their friendship. Lovers are normally face to face, absorbed in each other. Friends are side by side, absorbed in the same common interest. Friendships arise out of companionship when two or more discover they have in common some insight or interest, or even taste which others do not share, and which, till that moment, each believed to be his own unique treasure or burden. The typical expression of opening friendship would be something like, "What? You too? I thought I was the only one." Friendship is this idea of meeting someone who's got some common thing that attaches you to each other. And yet, friendship is this idea of looking out on the world together rather than just being completely absorbed in each other. A common shared value system. Aristotle, one of the greatest minds, they say, of all time, did a lot of work on friendship. The Greek world was obsessed with friendship. Aristotle says this thing. He says, friendship is where your soul is fully activated. Friends are important if we want to care for our soul. Friends are important if we want to find a place to belong. They're important if we want to form a strong identity around our value system. Friends are important if we want to fully love in this life. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Isn't that practical? Isn't God crazy? Okay, so why are friends even more important? Well, let me just show you a graph. Got this graph up here. This is a report that I read recently about the decline in friendship. It says that in the 1990, there was hardly anyone who thought they had less than 2 close friends. But by 2021, after the pandemic, there was a significant amount of men and women who felt like they had, less than 2 close friends. And if you look at the next, there's another stat here that I'd like to read to you, if you can flick it up, Bobby. There's that one up there, it's just about millennials, but it actually says, it's very small, it says 7% of millennials reported having no close friends, with 62% reporting to have none at all. Wow. Isn't that crazy? So I misread that, I think. 27% of millennials reported having
27 and then 22.
No close friends.
22.
And then 20% have none at all. Oh, no friends at all. Sorry. It's the party. My brain's still in the party. That doesn't make sense to me right now. Does it make sense to you?
It says 27% don't have any close friends. 22% reported
having no friends. Thank you, Pastor Kenneth. Does that make sense to everybody? Sorry, I didn't read that to be particularly helpful. People just don't have that much friends these days, is the point of all this research. And there's a few reasons up here. So they say maybe the pandemic didn't help out. In fact, if you're a woman, they say the pandemic cost you a lot more friends than a man. Wow. Don't know why. We don't know why yet. But the fact is that in the last few years, in my lifetime, people have gone from having quite strong communities and friendships to, for some people, 22% of millennials have no friends at all. Isn't that wild? If your friendship is how you're going to be formed, and how your value system will be strengthened, and how you love in life, and you have no opportunity to do that, isn't that crazy? So I hope you can realise, despite my terrible communication of those numbers, friendship is important to us from just a purely statistical human being level. Up there it says actually they've done more research on why friends are, what happens when you have friends. And it says things like, if you have a few good friends in your life, then your mental health will be better, your resilience will be better, they can measure you, that you literally have less stress in your life somehow. Most people are physically healthier somehow from having friends. Maybe they just get out a bit more, get a few more steps in, I don't know. But it's better for you physically, mentally, emotionally, resilience. It actually helps longevity. People with friends live longer, according to the research. Physically, as humans, we need friends. Here's a really important thing for us. Christians should actually probably value friends more than anybody else, because if you think about it, we serve a triune God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Some theologians say this is a community. A way to understand the triune God is as a community, right? The ultimate community. Some theologians say the way to understand the Trinity is the ultimate friendship. A community of people, a group of friends that are so free to do whatever they want and yet love one another so much that their love literally forms the other person. Our God is the God of friendship. Our God is so much the God of friendship that Jesus came and died, and he said things when he was here like, you're no longer slaves, you're my friends. The New Testament goes on and it talks about us being the friends of God. Friendship should actually be something we're really good at as Christians, because our God is the God of friendship. Our faith is formed by friendship. We are the friends of God. God has invited us into a friendship where he allows us to participate in the ultimate friendship in such a way that it forms who we are. Our God is the God of friendship. So friends should be important to us. It's pretty important to Paul if you read the Old Testament, because he spends a lot of time talking about how a community of faith should be a group of people that are known for their love. It's interesting if you think that friendship is defined as loving one another. Could it be that he's trying to suggest that the ultimate community is a community of people who love each other so much that that love forms one another's identity and value system and sense of belonging, that it's actually in community that Christians are able to be Christians. Friendship should matter to us more than it matters to anybody else, because not only is it important to us being human, it's very essential to our faith. Yeah? Cool, okay. So with that in mind, everyone looks pretty quiet again, so can we just get a little bit of party back, please? High five someone. Okay, so with that in mind, I just think it would be good for us to think about some of the ways that we form friendships before we talk about wisdom from Psalms. There's some really interesting ways that if you think about our culture, we think about friendship in particular ways. The first way I'd like to draw our attention to this morning is that when we think about friends, actually in our time in history and in our culture, the Western world, we don't think about friends at all, because you know what we think about? We think about like finding our person. Romantic love in the Western world is way more important than friendship. Now this hasn't always been the case. In the Greek world, friendship was up there, friendship was huge. But in our culture, we don't really talk about friendship, but we do talk about Mr. Right, and we do, you know, when we gossip about celebrities, we gossip about who's hooking up with who. That's what's on the cover of magazines, that's what's popping up on your social media notifications. We have a fascination in our time in history with romantic love, and only romantic love, to the point that that's what we are socialized to think is the most important relationship in the world. And I'm not saying it's not very, very, very important, but it's very interesting that our culture will prioritize one relationship and make us forget about all other relationships. And this is interesting even more because psychologists tell us that in our time in history, because we're so fixated on like finding our Mr. Right, Mrs. Right, our one person, that we have done this really weird thing where we used to have a village, we used to have all of these different members of our community that we had special relationships with. You know, we had a best friend, and we had a group of friends, and we had mums, and we had aunties and uncles, and we had our seniors, and we had younger people. We had this wealth of relationships in our life. But now, because we don't focus on any of those other relationships, we just focus on a romantic relationship, we try and get all of those relationship needs from one person. So now our partner has to be our best friend, our partner has to be like our party friend, our partner has to be our shopping friend, our partner has to, be able to have deep meaningfuls with us, but they have to also maintain some mystery. They have to, they have to be able to work a good budget, but then they also have to not fight with us. Like our romantic partner in our time in history is all of the relationships that we used to find in our community in one, in our expectations. So let me just park that there. That's the first kind of way that we tend to think about friends in our time in history. The second way that we think about friends in our time in history is, particularly if you're from a more traditional culture, is that we don't really think about friends because we have a motto that says family first. And again, I'm not saying that family isn't first, but sometimes we exclude all other relationships because family's first. You can't have friends, you can't go out, you can't do other stuff because your family is first. Some scholars say there's a verse in Proverbs 17:17 that says, a friend is for all times and a brother is born for adversity. Some scholars say that a way to think about this verse is to say that your friends are with you through every part of your life. And your family is usually, with you in adversity, but maybe they're not with you when you want to go to the movies on Friday night. Some people, they have families and you love your family, but there's some things you won't tell your family because you love them so much. Maybe you want to protect them from that news, or maybe you want to, save face because you don't want to get a lecture. We have different ways of interacting with our family, and none of that is necessarily wrong, but sometimes friends can come in and actually strengthen our family relationship. The best families are the families when you become friends with them and then you just somehow join their whole family. Isn't that like kind of a cool family? Like a family that includes instead of just saying, like family first. Friendship is really important, and I think it's really important for our families to consider how we guide one another into good friendships, how we include family and family and family. But our culture will just tell us, if we're not careful, Don't worry about anyone, just worry about us. Keep it to the family, keep it in the family, okay? That's one way that we think about friends in our time. So one way is we don't care about friends. We just think we're going to get all of our relationship needs met in our Mr. or Mrs. Right. Another way is we don't care about friends. We just think if we just stick with our family, everything will be okay. Another way that we think about friends is, I think maybe in my generation this is dying out, but this is true of some people, some places. We have this idea of being a good citizen, a good member of society. And if I'm like part of the PTA, and if I'm, managing my kids' sports team, and if I'm a good neighbour, and if I, just be a good community member, then I don't need friends. I know everybody, I'm contributing, I'm a good citizen. We have this idea that sometimes being a good citizen means we don't really need to be a good friend, because we're a community member. We're doing everything that we need to do. It's another way that we think about friends in our time in history, and why this is kind of important, because if you think about the meaning of friendship in our context, that it's people that your heart leans towards. Oh, thank you, my friend. I don't think anything can help me at the moment. Oh, what a guy! What a guy! He's MVP. Aww, thank you. I think I might just have to have a crazy cough, if that's alright. Try and get a lung up, that might help. Didn't help. So, good member of society means you don't have to have friends. But if your heart is meant to lean towards people and be attached to people, you need to have depth of relationship. We can't just tick a box.
Yeah, that's good.
Depth of relationship is really important. And although I think it's really important and admirable, and getting lost, to be honest, from my generation and younger, it's a sad thing to see that we're not very good members of our community sometimes. We are very hyper-individualized. So it's a beautiful thing to be a member of our community. It's a beautiful thing to find a great partner. It's a beautiful thing to have a great family. But if these things cause us to exclude something that we were built for, then we just need to reevaluate what our culture is teaching us. Is that cool? Yeah. Here's another one. This is probably for the youngerish people among us. This is another way that we think about friendship in our time. And that is bros before everything else. Bros before everything else. And this is the kind of thinking that prioritizes your friendships over your family, over your romantic partner, over your community. This is just the inverse of what all of these other think about, right? I don't know if you know that lady or that man who they get a partner and suddenly, they don't care, because their friends are more important than their family, their friends are more important than their kids, their friends are more important than their social commitments. Like if they're not doing it with the boys or with the girls, they don't do it. There's a thinking in our time like that our friendship group is more important than anything else. And again, friends are great, but if we develop these relationships in exclusion of all the parts of our lives that are important, then we are not applying the wisdom of our faith. Friends are great, but it looks like God is trying to develop a full person. Another way that we can think about friends in our time, and this is really recent, about 5-10 years ago, there started being all this social talk, and even t-shirts, you'd see it in fashion and stuff, and it was this idea of no new friends, keep your circle small. You're cool if you don't trust people, you're cool if you're just on your grind, just don't tell people what you're doing, just keep it to yourself, keep it small, no new friends. And I think that is just a backlash to people being hurt, people listening to a culture that's trying to hyper-individualize us, at the exclusion of community, at the exclusion of family, at the exclusion of other important things. And this idea of no new friends, or I don't need anybody, is quite prevalent. Even actually in some of the research that I was reading, they were trying to address this thinking that people it's quite common at this time, that we don't need friends. What do we need friends for? They're not that important, are they? No new friends, keep your circle small, don't trust people, don't let people in. is the genesis of why England recently created a whole new part of cabinet, a minister to their parliament, who was the minister of loneliness. Because they have such an epidemic of loneliness that it's had become the government's problem to try and fix it. Isn't that crazy? No new friends. It's a bit silly. It's a silly one as well. Lastly, this is an important one because it sort of speaks to what C.S. Lewis was talking about. Sometimes we can just be desperate for friends. You know those desperate friends people, and they sort of won't leave you alone. And you got nothing in common and you want to be a good person, but sometimes we're just desperate to have someone in our life. Like we just want friends, we want to be loved, we want to belong, we want people, right? This is the good need. This is a great need. Except C.S. Lewis suggests in his writing that the whole point of finding friendship is that you don't go out to find a friend, you just find people that have shared values. The whole idea of finding a friend isn't like, I picked Mercy and she's going to be my best friend for life now, and I just shadow her around and get in her business and force her to hang out with me. It's not really how it works, Me and Mercy are cool because we have, a few shared values. Obviously, Jesus helps. This church helps. Other things help. A friend is someone who you're shoulder to shoulder with and you look out on the world and you see the same thing. You want the same thing. Yes. When we're just desperate to make a friend, it can't happen. Because the point of a friendship is not actually the friendship. The point of a friendship is something bigger than both of you. So, just a tip. If you're looking for friends, and we probably all are, to be honest, we all need friends. Don't go stalk someone, like I was, just admonishing myself not to stalk Mercy. Just get really strong on your values. Just find people, get into spaces where people share your values, and you have that aha moment that C.S. Lewis was talking about. They're like, what, you too? I thought it was just me. Let's go. Let's look out on life the same together. Let's keep getting to know each other as we move towards the same things together. Let's, start forming each other's identity and enjoying each other's company as we keep growing our value system and the things that are important to us together. We have a head start here because we have at least one thing in common, yeah? We have Jesus. Yeah. Probably one of the other reasons that a church should be one of the most loving, most friendly places, because we already, despite all of our differences, have the most powerful thing in common. So, that's enough about all the ways that we think about friendship. I hope you think that was interesting, because I do think that's interesting, and I actually think some of that stuff, because we're not aware of it, it really rips us off thinking about friendship, and it minimizes the importance of friendship. I know when I was reading some of those things, I was like, oh yeah, okay, wow. I can see a little bit of that thinking in my own life. Well, I will bring that to the Lord. I'll let him sort of speak into that. And I hope that you can find that too. Yeah. Because, like I said, our God is the God of friendship. Our God, our faith is a faith that values friendship. Cool, okay, so here are some ideas from Proverbs about what friendship, we should do about friendship. My poor son.
Needs a friend.
He needs a friend. Wisdom from the Proverbs. Okay, firstly I want to talk about a few things to avoid. Let me read you. Proverbs 17:9. It says, whoever covers an offence seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates friends. Here's the point. When you're looking for friends, even if you are valuing the same stuff, probably good to avoid a gossip. Probably good to avoid someone who's talking someone else's business to you, because you know that if they're telling you about other people, they're probably telling other people about you. Just 101, yes? In church, let me just fire some shots here. I'm going to shoot my shot on this one. In church, we have this beautiful spiritual way of getting around being a gossip by being a prayer gossip. Every church has got some where we go, I'm only telling you about this, Ken, because I think we should pray about it. But that's not my motive. My motive is that I'm just telling stories. Let's not be those guys. That doesn't help. We don't want to be that, and we don't want to have that. Yeah, let's just check ourselves in that domain. We want to be friends.
Yeah.
that are trustworthy, not friends that just talk smack. And Proverbs says that's the first thing we should avoid. The second thing, let me read 18:24, says, one who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. What it's saying here is to avoid fair weather friends. So you have friends that are companions. They're there for you, but they're not going to be there for you when times get tough. It's good to have a community of people around you. You can't be best friends with everybody, but you do need a few best friends that you can count on when times get tough. I think it's important to know who would come and move your house. Know who would come and lend you $200 if you need it. Those kind of people. Friends that are there when times get tough. Avoid fair weather friends, according to the Proverbs. 19:6 says, many curry favor with a ruler, and everyone is the friend of one who gives gifts. This is common sense, Everybody likes someone who's always shouting food, always buying the coffee, always picking you up in their car, always being the one who listens to you vent. Everybody loves that person. But if you're looking for someone who's going to be the person that your heart leans towards, like a true friend, a good friend, then let's be careful about selfish motives. And actually, because we want to be good friends too, let's be reflective and learn how to be a friend who doesn't just want Mariana to pray for me. Maybe I'm asking Mariana how I can pray for Mariana. Maybe I don't want, Tim to always come over to my house. Maybe I need to go and visit Sang and Miriam. To reflect on how we are, but also try and avoid making a best friend who has selfish motives, according to Proverbs. Proverbs 22:24-25 says, do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared. Basically what the proverb is saying is to avoid bad character. This idea of anger, it could be interchanged with anything else that's of poor character. When we hang around someone, I'm a youth worker, I'm sure you guys have heard this before, I used to say it like 1,000 times a week. Show me the 10 people, the 5 people that are closest to you in your life, and I'll tell you where you'll be in 10 years. You guys have heard that before, yeah. It's this idea. Find people that are a good character. Find people that have good values that you can stand shoulder to shoulder with and egg each other along in the right path. And you will have some good friends. So there's a few things that Proverbs tells us to avoid, okay? So what does Proverbs tell us to then look for? 27:10 says, wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. So if we're avoiding gossip, then actually something that we need to be looking for in our friendships is radical candor. Radical candor is the kind of friend that can tell us things that are difficult for us to hear in a kind way in which we can hear them. You know a good friend, right? When they can tell you something that might hurt your feelings a little bit, but they can say it in such a way that you know they're in it for you. Radical candor. Let's avoid being gossips. Let's avoid best friending talkers. But let's develop amongst ourselves this kind of radical candor. It's a form of love, according to the Bible. Radical candor. This verse actually is it's an interesting, like a kind of poetic Hebrew thing, and it is what it's trying to do is contrast that in some of our relationships, the wounds of a friend are faithful, like you can trust. The wounds from a friend is something you can trust, whereas the kisses of an enemy are untrustworthy. Untrustworthy kisses and faithful wounds. We want to be people who are faithfully wounded, if that makes sense. The second thing that we need to look for, according to Proverbs, is there's a couple of verses here. 17:17 says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. 27:10 says, do not forsake a friend of your family. Do not go to your relative's house when a disaster strikes you. Better a neighbor nearby than a relative far away. And if we are avoiding fair weather friends, then what we're looking for is loyalty. Yeah? The Psalm sort of thinks that, your family, when bad things happen, you can turn to your family. Even most people who have difficult family relationships still allow for that connection that family has. this proverb is suggesting that we can develop friendships that equal that ability to turn to that person when you're having a rough time, that turn to that person when you need something. This proverb seems to think not exclusion of our family, but that your friends could become like family in that way as well, and that's actually something to develop in our life. Next one, Proverbs 25:17 says, seldom set your foot, I think this is kind of a funny one, seldom set your foot in your neighbour's house. Too much of you and they'll hate you. No? No laughs? Come on, guys, don't you think that's funny? Too much of you and they'll hate you? I think that's hilarious. It's something I would say. 25:20 says, whoever sings songs to a heavy heart is like one who takes off a garment on a cold day and vinegar on soda. 27:14 says, if anyone loudly blesses their neighbour early in the morning, it will be taken as a curse. So if we're avoiding selfish motives, what we're actually looking for, according to these proverbs, is someone who's just emotionally aware of themselves and aware of you. These psalms, right? Like, don't go over to your friend's house too much or they'll get tired of you. It's not saying like we should have unattached friendships. It's saying that we should be aware of the needs of the other person, so much so that if they need us at their house, then we turn up. But if they need some space, we know them well enough, we're attached to them well enough to know when we don't push our needs on our friend. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whoever sings songs to a heavy heart is like one who takes off a garment on a cold day. I don't know, but basically, if you're sad and someone, does that toxic positivity thing of just, trying to, you're fine, sunny day, oh, lucky to be breathing. It doesn't help. This is what this is saying. Instead of being so consumed by ourselves, the kind of friends that we're looking for are aware of themselves, emotionally aware of themselves, so that they can be emotionally available to us. This is what this proverb is telling us. Emotional awareness is something that we look for in a good friend. And lastly, 27:9 says, oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. If we know we're avoiding bad character, then actually something that we're looking for is good guidance. People that you can have a good conversation with and you can trust that their opinion, whether you take it or not, is up to you, but their opinion is valuable. Their opinion has merit. Their opinion is going to be guiding you towards your shared values, not guiding you into ensnarement. We're looking for radical candor. We're looking to become people of radical candor. It's actually harder than you think. We're looking to become loyal, and we're looking for friends that are loyal to us. We're looking to have emotional awareness, and we're looking for friends that are aware of us. We're looking to be people of guidance, people that can guide and advise and champion one another towards our shared values. And we're looking for the same in others, yeah? And according to Proverbs, that's what friendship is kind of about. Having people in your heart, in your life that your heart is attached to, that your heart leans towards. People in your life that your heart leans towards as they can help guide you towards your future, but also the future that you share with them. Because you share values, you share a sense of belonging, you share this heart connection. People that can guide you, people that can be candid with you when other people can't. People that not only love you, but they're loyal to you. People that not only love you, but they're aware of your needs, and they don't put their own needs ahead of yours. Doesn't that sound kind of cool? I think at this point what happens is, I don't know about you, but it makes you think, man, I'm keen for some good friends. I think many of us are lucky because we have some good friends. But I think also the truth is, we have such a mobile society, right? I don't know about you, but some of my closest friends don't live anywhere near me. Some of them have moved away. Some of them actually have passed on. Some of my closest friends from my younger years are with Jesus right now. And I'm sure you guys have the same, right? We're not always feeling like we have best friends supporting us in this way all of the time. And sometimes when we talk about it, it helps us become aware of the need that we do need this. We need this. We're born for this. If our God is the God of friendship, if our God literally is the perfect friendship, and we are made in His image, then the call for us is for friends, to be good friends, to have good friends. And sometimes when you don't have that in your world right now, or even if you want more, just topics like that just kind of leave you with like a bit of a sense of like, oh, like a bit that longing. You know that longing? When you want those people in your life. So I just want to say, if you have like a bit of a longing right now for friends, I would like to pray for you. And if you don't, if your life is so full of the greatest friends in the world, I'd like to pray that we continue to become these Proverbs kind of friends.
Yeah.
Not friends that define what's important in friendship by what culture's telling us, but friends that can live up to these things, can live up to being these kind of people as individually and also corporately. Man, what does a church of friends look like?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a throwing down of the gauntlet, you see?